Hi, everyone. I'm going to just complete the film marketing lecture. So just as an example of a promotional tie-in, in this case, it's a promotional tie-in with Bud Light, and they are tying themselves to the San Diego Chargers, and hopefully, in the case of Bud Light and the Los Angeles Chargers, I should say, it's a beneficial relationship for both parties. And again, right? Um, Bud Light is taking a big chance that again they're going to have a halo effect. In other words, the fans of the Los Angeles Chargers are also become fans of Bud Light because Bud Light has attached themselves to um, this particular football team. So, in terms of potential problems, so we have film or TV ratings are higher than expected. And so, what I mean by that essentially is that oftentimes when you do a promotional tie-in, you expect beforehand that the film's going to be, let's say, a PG rating. And it turns out that for whatever reason, the film turns out to be rated a PG-13. And so that's not what you expected. And so potentially it could hurt your box office, or it could affect in terms of like the target audience. You're expecting a bunch of kids to go watch your particular film with a G rating or a PG, and now all of a sudden it's a PG-13. And so higher or TV ratings that are higher than expected could be problematic. Now, other problems that are probably even far worse than number one is production delays. So in this particular case, again, most of the time you have a production schedule from the studio or the distributor. They're going to tell you, okay, we're going to release our movie at this point in time. And so you need to pre-buy television spots long in advance, generally speaking, and just in order to secure time on various networks. And so what ends up happening if there's a production delay? So let's just say that you were expected to have the film released, let's say in the summertime, let's say in August, and there's production delays. Now the movie's going to be released in December. And so what happens with the production delays is essentially the times that you had reserved for September are now going to be in December, but the costs to run commercials increase if you move from, let's say, a month like September to December. And the reason it increases in December is because it's the holiday season. And generally speaking, networks increase their ad rates closer around the times of the holidays. Number three, we have low ratings or poor box office results. Certainly, this is bad for obviously both parties, but certainly for the perspective of the advertiser, it's bad because it hurts your brand image. You're attaching yourself to a product that's poor, and so that's going to reflect poorly on your particular brand. And last but not least, we have what's called creative differences. And this creative difference happened between Taco Bell and Sony's Godzilla. And I'm going to show you a commercial about this.
Godzilla's hiding, and it's up to you to find him. Just buy a medium or larger drink. If you find a Godzilla, use your decoder to reveal what you've won.
Uh-oh. I think I need a bigger box.
Okay, so that's a cute commercial. The problem is in this particular case between Sony and between Taco Bell is that Taco Bell essentially wanted to show the Godzilla in the little commercials for this promotional tie-in. And Sony, in this particular case, didn't want to show the monster. They didn't want to show the identity of the monster because they wanted to generate merchandising sales from the monster on the monster, and so they wanted to keep the identity of the monster a mystery. And so there was, creative differences in terms of like how to construct a commercial when one party doesn't want to show the identity of the Godzilla, and one party wants to show the identity of the Godzilla. So what I'm trying to say here, of course, is that the creative differences in this case couldn't necessarily be resolved because at the end of the day, Sony just didn't want to show the identity of the Godzilla, and Taco Bell was trying to run this commercial, and essentially all they can, I guess, came up with was just they could show the tail or the back part of the Godzilla. So this is always a problem when you're working with different parties, is that you may not agree on how you want the campaign to go. In this case, Taco Bell and Sony didn't agree on how what to do with the Godzilla in terms of the identity of the Godzilla, and so that's a problem that you can always run into. So high concept films. So bear in mind that only some studio films are high concept films, and we'll talk about what high concept means shortly. But generally speaking, comedies, for instance, are certainly not concept films, high concept films. The reason they're not high concept films, if you think about it, is that comedy, right, or humor is oftentimes very culturally specific. And so for high concept movies, you're really attracting a global audience. You want as many people to watch your movie as possible. And so generally speaking, right, if we think about comedies, not everybody's going to think the same type of humor is funny. And oftentimes, again, comedy or sense of humor is culturally specific. So comedies may do well here in the United States, but internationally they may not do as well. Horror films is another genre that, generally speaking, is not considered to be um, a high concept film. Yes, there's many horror film fans, but it's not necessarily kid friendly or family friendly. And so generally speaking, horror films are not high concept films. Um, Generally speaking, our films are not high concept films, generally speaking. Um, our films can be at times high concept, but for the most part, right, if you think about an R film, they're most of the time intended for an adult audience. And so generally speaking, they are not considered to be high concept. And again, I'm talking about generally for our films. And so again, comedies almost never high concept. Horror films almost never high concept, and our films almost always are never high concept. So just to kind of give you an example. So other studio films that center on like social ills of our society, they're good movies in some cases, and it's good that we're seeing these movies. But for the most part, those sorts of films like, social unrest or movies that center on racism, those sorts of things, so movies that center on poverty, generally those don't do well internationally as well. So those also are not considered high concept. So anyways, marketing. So generally speaking, for high concept films, marketing plays a crucial role in this, and marketing is trying to create broad awareness and interest in the movie, because the first week of box office is incredibly important. And so generally speaking, the studio is going to spend a lot of money in marketing and advertising before the movie's even released, because they want to do well for that opening box office, that first week box office. Generally speaking, high concept films have well-known cast members. You know who they are. They're generally speaking A-level cast members. The second point is high concept movies are almost always easily told stories. So it's kind of a misnomer that we refer to these high concept films when the story is easily told. It doesn't really make sense, but really what they mean, I guess, by high concept is that they are striving to have an easily told story that's easily understandable for a global audience. And so again, it's a little bit of a misnomer when you think of high concept, and then you think of global interest. Just not, doesn't necessarily jive. But again, high concept referring to it, they want an easily understood story that's going to appeal to a broad audience. Generally speaking, it has a single marketing image, sustained marketing in media and merchandising. So they usually use some sort of image that's highly recognizable, right? It's gonna you're gonna remember. So, for instance, maybe you think about Harry Potter. It's an easily recognizable marketing image. Or if you think about Shrek, right? You know that image you see in your head when you hear the word Shrek. And so that sort of image is going to be sustained throughout all different types of media, as well as if you think about t-shirts, if you think about video games, pajamas, all those sorts of things that spin off of these movies and merchandising. Generally speaking, almost always, I should say, high concept movies are connected to some sort of pre-existing property. So what I mean by a pre-existing property, generally speaking, they are sequels. Oftentimes, they might be based off of a book. They might be based off of a television show. They might be based off of a video game. They might be based off of a short story. So there's some sort of pre-existing property where people are aware that this story actually exists. And so for the distributor, the studio, in most cases, they do this because they want to reduce risk, right? They know that, oh, Harry Potter, the book sold a lot of copies. And so if we make a movie about Harry Potter, it's 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 going to do well because it has popularity in this pre-existing property. And so that's how they reduce risk. Distribution. So generally speaking, for distribution, it is what they do. It's called a saturation release. That's for distribution. So for saturation release, what that means is, generally speaking, the movie is released in well over 3,000 screens. Again, it's released in well over 3,000 screens. For the most part, these movies are released during the summer, or they're released during the winter holidays. And the reason they do this is because they know the target audience. The target audience is, generally, young folks who tend to go to the movies. They're not in school at that point in time. So in the summertime, it makes sense to release these high concept films because the target audience has plenty of time off to go watch these movies. And during the winter holidays, of course, or like say winter break, right? They again know that you have plenty of time to go watch these particular movies. And so that in terms of distribution, they saturate the marketplace with the movie, and they try to place the movie in all the best theaters throughout the country, and again in at least 3,000 screens. Merchandising potential, so you can easily spin off merchandise off of this particular movie, whether would be with toys, whether it be video games, t-shirts, pajamas, etc., etc. Maybe you can even make, I suppose, you can re-release a book uh, um, after the movie's been released. So it's also obviously it's an excellent promotional tie-in or product placement candidate for various companies, because generally speaking, a studio is going to, invest a lot of energy in making sure that a lot of people go watch a high concept movie. And so promotional tie-in partners know that, this particular movie, the studio is really going to invest a lot of effort, and really there's the potential for a lot of eyeballs is great. The studios, they're gonna do whatever it takes to reduce the possibility of a box office bust. And so for product placement candidates, they also know that, hey, this is going to be a lot of people are going to watch our products in this particular movie. The box office is going to be really high. So it behooves us to place our products in this particular movie. So again, from a promotional tie-in candidates and product placement candidates, they both want to place their products or attach their products to this particular movies. And again, if you remember that the lecture, oftentimes promotional tie-ins and product placement are tied together, right? So oftentimes when a company places their product into a movie, along with that, sometimes the studio is going to say, well, it's like, would you also like to be a promotional tie-in partner along with that? So anyways, what was the first high concept movie? The first high concept movie was Jaws, way back in 1975. So I'll show you a clip of Jaws.
There is a creature alive today who has survived millions of years of evolution without change, without passion, and without logic. It lives to kill. A mindless eating machine. It will attack and devour anything. It is as if God created the devil and gave him jaws. This is Universal's extraordinary motion picture version of Peter Benchley's best-selling novel, Jaws.
I just found out that a girl got killed here last week. And you knew it. You knew there was a shark out there. You knew it was dangerous. But you let people go swimming anyway.
You yell barracuda. Everybody says, huh? What? You yell shark. We've got a panic on our hands on the 4th of July.
Is it true that most people get attacked by sharks in 3 feet of water, about 10 feet from the beach?
Yeah. What we are dealing with here is a perfect engine, an eating machine.
We're not only going to have to close the beach, we're going to have to hire somebody to kill the shark.
Bad fish. But I'll catch him and kill him.
Did you hear your father? Out of the water now!
This shark, swallow you whole. You're gonna need a bigger boat.
That's a 20-footer.
25. 3 tons of them.
Hurry up, he's coming straight for us. Don't screw it up now. Don't wait for me. Now! Shoot! What's the tail? Give him room! I can't! He's trying to run! Oh! Cut it quick! I can't hold it! Hurry! Break it up! Brody! Everybody out of the water!
None of man's fantasies of evil can compare with the reality of Jaws. Roy Scheider, Robert Shaw, Richard Dreyfuss, Jaws. See it before you go swimming.
So that's again, Jaws was considered to be the first high concept film. And again, it was released in 1975, and the movie was based off of a Peter Benchley novel. And so the movie itself completely revitalized, or I should say changed, the way movie marketing was conducted and the way movies were distributed. So the first thing that Universal did that changed marketing as we know it was that they front-loaded the campaign with advertising. In other words, what they did is that they just saturated the marketplace with ads. And now, obviously, nowadays we're used to that. We're the idea that, you know, when a Marvel movie's coming out, or a Disney movie or Warner Brothers or whatever, they saturate the market with commercials to let us know the movie's coming out. That was, you know, that practice didn't always happen. It started with Jaws, really. And so the idea of front loading again started with Jaws, this idea of saturating the marketplace with advertising. Now the distribution part, the way distribution used to be done was that it would have to open up in one theater, and then if it did okay, it increased to 2 theaters. And if it did okay, then it increased to 4 and 8. It would do a platform release, right? It would keep releasing the movie as long as it kept sustaining a really good box office. And but with distribution in this particular case, they released the movie, and I want to say over 400 theaters, I believe, screens, which again, for back in 1975, releasing a movie in over 400 theaters was a big deal. So essentially, what Universal did with the marketing and distribution, they saturated the marketplace with marketing. They saturated the marketplace with distribution, and they did this huge release of a movie. And so essentially Universal, right, what they did is they changed the way movies were promoted and marketed, and they changed the way movies were distributed. Now, most studio movies are saturate the market with commercials before the movie's released, and they implement a saturation of distribution, right? They distribute the movie in all these different theaters throughout the country without knowing if it's going to do well or not. So it's a very risky a venture to saturate the marketplace with marketing and advertising and with distribution without knowing if it's going to do well. But anyways, again, Jaws, first high concept film, changed the way movies were promoted and marketed by saturating the marketplace with ads before the movie was even released. And again, they saturated distribution again before the film was even released, which was for 1975 was highly unusual, never done before prior to 1975, at least not in recent memory. So hopefully that makes sense. Now, I'm going to show you a clip of The Conjuring 3 here, and I want you to think to yourself, is this high concept or is it not high concept? And why wouldn't it be high concept, or why would it be high concept?
What do you make of that voice?
After everything we've seen, there isn't much that rattles either of us anymore. But this one still haunts me. 2 months prior to our involvement, the Lutz family had fled their home in the middle of the night, claiming that the house was haunted. The church had reached out to us for help. They wanted to see if we could confirm the activity that had been reported by the Lutzes.
Something awful happened here, Ed.
What is it?
What do you see? Whatever Lorraine sees, feels, touches, it takes a toll on her. A little piece each time.
Hello?
So is this high concept or not? So certainly it's a franchise, right? It's the first two Conjurings did fairly well at the box office. So there's a market for horror films. So in this particular case, right, you know that the Conjuring 3, if it was going to be released theatrically, it would do pretty well for a few weeks in the United States, and it would do fairly, I think, fairly well also internationally. But it's not a high concept movie. It's not going to generate, $500 million or something like that. It's probably going to, something like this would generate probably a little over $100 million here in the United States, and probably between about $200 million, I should say, in internationally, which is again very profitable and very good. But this is not, would not be considered to be high concept. Yes, people are going to go watch it. Yes, it's going to be successful, but it's not high concept. It's not necessarily intended for a mass audience. Although a good number of people will watch it, but again, it's not considered a high concept movie. So for Barb and Star, again, think about high concept or not.
What are you doing? Oh, I was just playing with this lamp. Oh. I'm Star, short for Starbra.
Assume yours is Barbara.
Nope, just Barb. Plain old Barb.
I want to thank Barb and Star for hosting tonight's Talking Club and for making their hot dog soup. I like the salt.
I like the hot dog.
It's not as runny as it usually is.
What is she drawing? Hope she gives me bigger teeth. Love big teeth. She loves big teeth. Even if it's just two eyes on a bunch of teeth. It would be so nice. Look, my new phone case. I love it! It's like I'm listening to the ocean. Wait, we don't have cell phones. I know I'm gonna take it home and glue it to our landline. Hi! 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 I'm Barb, and this is Star.
Room number again, please, sir?
611.
6'11"? Oh my, Barb. Oh my gosh, he's 6'11". 6'11"? We're in 124.
So here we have a comedy, and again, if you remember what I said previously about comedies tend to be very culturally specific. And so obviously this movie looks kind of, could be kind of funny, but again, it's only going to appeal to a certain audience. So again, this is not going to fall under the realm of high concept. And so if you go back to what I talked about with market research and this idea of having movies appeal ideally to these four quadrants, right? Male and female, above and below 25. And so both the Barb and Star, Go Visit Vista Del Mar, as well as The Conjuring 3, really don't fill those four quadrants. And so because of that reason primarily, it's not really considered to be high concept. This is not going to appeal to all audiences, and it's not going to generate enormous box offices, although they might be profitable in both cases. So that concludes my lecture on film marketing.